Why don't we just tow Holly? That's the question that we get asked the most. Let me explain the setup, just for those who don't know. We are 3 people, 2 big ones and a little one, and we have 3 boats, 2 big ones and 1 little one. One of those big boats is our house, and the other is our cafe. The little one is a canoe. Usually, when we move our little fleet, we all move on one boat and then one of us cycles back for the other one. The question that's on everyone's mind is, why don't we tow the other big boat with the big boat? The answer is that it's not as easy as all that. First of all, it's just a bit of a faff. Okay, so that's not a narrowboat, but that's the best origami that YouTube could teach me in about 10 minutes. And the real question is, why don't we use Zero, the boat that we live on, to tow Holly? It seems like it would make sense. Wouldn't it save on fuel? Wouldn't it kind of save on time? Wouldn't it be less hassle that I don't have to go back and retrieve the other boat? The answer why we don't do very much towing is a bit of a long answer. The first part is that it's just a bit of a faff. A lot of the reason why it's such a faff has to do with Holly's bow shape. Holly's bow shape isn't actually like this. It's a bit more like this. And that makes a big difference. That means that any water that's being pushed back from Zero's propeller can just end up jamming against the side of Holly's bow, as opposed to a traditional bow shape, which is kind of more like this, which would allow for more of that water just to slip underneath. This way, the boats end up just kind of fighting each other. Zero just pushing water against the side of Holly's bow, neither of those 2 boats kind of getting anywhere. That just makes it super unforgiving. Like one false move or one kind of move out of alignment and it's just a complete palaver to try and get them back in line again. Other sort of more traditional narrowboat bow shape is that sort of scooped thing that allows water to kind of pass a little bit more easily underneath. So I guess just Holly's bow wasn't made for towing. And that's not the only thing about Holly that isn't made for towing. It's also the rudder. Traditional butty boats that are kind of built to be towed by a motorboat, they don't even have rudders.
Is that called a special kind of like...
That's an ellum.
They have a much bigger kind of affair going on at the back there called an ellum. So, despite the fancy name, an ellum is basically just a big old rudder. It's all made out of wood. They're incredible, like, ornate objects, but the point of them being that big is because they haven't got a propeller in front of them. They make use of the water that's just kind of going past, and they're big enough to sort of make enough of a difference to the steering that way. So they're functional as well as being stylish. Of course, having a stylish and functional ellum on the back of the boat only really matters if you've got somebody there steering it, and that's kind of another problem for us. In the past, one of us drove Zero while the other one of us steered Holly. Now that's kind of less possible because William just doesn't want to stand on the back of a boat steering. Not for very long anyway. We've tried. Both boats, Holly and Zero, have engines in them, and another part of the question of towing is, why don't you tow? You'll save on fuel. The trouble is, I don't think that's the case. Each boat has an engine and a fuel tank, and when the engines are on, they're burning fuel from their own fuel tank. The idea that it's more fuel economical to tow one of the boats is based on the assumption that if you don't switch one of those engines on, hey presto, you're saving yourself a whole tank's worth of fuel. Unfortunately, most of the time you don't get something for nothing, and I think with narrowboats it's no different. If you're towing a boat, the engine that's doing the towing just has to work twice as hard, and possibly for twice as long, because it takes ages towing. So it's using up the same amount of diesel as you would be if you had both engines on, if not perhaps a little bit more. Especially because both of those engines are kind of sized to suit their vessel. Neither one of these engines is massive and kind of really benefits from any kind of economy by doing more work. The other kind of added disadvantage of that is that diesel kind of tends to go bad if you leave it in an engine for too long or leaving it lying around in a tank. So by not using the engine on one of the boats, it's kind of a use it or lose it situation. Boat life's quite famous for being all chilled out and relaxing, but sometimes if people see there's a boat coming in the other direction, they panic a bit. If they see that boat's got a canoe behind it, they might panic a little bit more. If they see that boat is towing another boat which has a canoe behind that, usually by that time they're at full panic stations. And the reasonable thing to do is to want to get out of that situation as fast as possible, so they start going at full speed. The thing about that is, water works in mysterious ways, and that propeller going at full speed is pushing water out the back of it, but also dragging water in towards it. That also starts to affect the boats that are around it as they go past. It sort of draws the boats nearer to the propeller. That then causes that panicked boat to panic a little bit more and go even faster. By the time that panicked boat is clear, you're just in complete disarray, boats all over the place. Basically, towing is a faff. I've met people who love it and who do it sort of all day, no problem, but for me, I just find it a bit of a palaver. Okay, so that's it. That's why we don't tow the boats. Thanks for watching. Big thanks to the Petron crew. See you next week. Bye!